18. That is the exact percentage of your gross income that separates Americans who retire with real options from Americans who retire on prayers. Not 16, not 20, 18. And the reason nobody printed that number on the poster in your HR office is not an accident. Here is what that number means in practice. The Employee Benefit Research Institute has tracked retirement confidence data for more than 30 years. In their 2024 survey, 47% of American workers said they felt behind on retirement savings. Not a little behind in a way that keeps them up at night. Most of them are doing exactly what conventional wisdom told them to do. They contribute to their 401k. They keep the money in index funds. They do not panic sell during market drops. They followed the rules. The rules still produced anxiety. That frustration is not a personal failing. It is the predictable result of following advice calibrated to generate revenue for the financial services industry, not to get you to the specific number that actually changes your outcome. I built a free retirement calculator because most online ones are mathematically broken. It uses Vanguard and BlackRock logic to find the weak points in your specific plan. The link is in the description. I only ask for your email to send the report. No financial data stored on my end. Now I want you to picture a pressure tank. Not an industrial one, just the type of water storage tank common in rural American homes, the kind that pressurizes the house plumbing and feeds the faucets and the showers. When that tank is mostly empty, turning on a faucet produces a trickle. You can hear the pump running hard. Every drop of water you feel comes directly from the pump working in real time. The tank physically exists. The system is technically operational. But the experience of actual usable water pressure comes 100% from the pump grinding away every single moment. The tank itself is contributing almost nothing. Then at a specific fill level, something shifts. The pump cycles less. The water flows on its own. The tank has enough volume that the system sustains its own pressure between pump cycles without you doing anything. Two completely different functional realities from the exact same hardware. The only variable was how much water was already in the tank. Your investment portfolio operates this exact way. There is a specific dollar amount below which your monthly contributions do almost all the work, and your portfolio does almost none. Below that threshold, you are the pump, manually, every month. Above it, the system begins sustaining its own momentum between your contributions. The financial industry has every incentive to show you the fully pressurized tank in their commercials, and exactly zero incentive to publish the minimum fill level required to get there. So let me give you the actual math that the well-designed infographics keep cutting out of the picture. Every number below uses a 7% annual return. That is inflation-adjusted. Conservative. Built from the S&P 500's verified long-run average after accounting for the real-world fee drag and behavioral gap that actual investors experience. Not the theoretical investor sitting perfectly still in a spreadsheet. 7% is not a best-case scenario engineered to make a chart look exciting. It is what a realistic investor capturing most of the index return, after ordinary human imperfections, tends to land near over 3 decades. Here is what different savings rates produce for a worker earning $75,000 per year across 10, 20, and 30 years of investing. At 3% savings, roughly where the average American household actually lands according to Bureau of Economic Analysis data, that earner sends $187 per month into their account. After 10 years, $29,000. After 20 years, $74,000. After 30 years, $187,000. At a 4% withdrawal rate, that 30-year result generates $623 per month in retirement income. Social Security adds something on top. Continued part-time work handles the rest. That is not retirement. That is a lighter version of the same treadmill. At 10% savings, the target most financial content presents as the responsible standard. That same $75,000 earner sends $625 per month into the account. After 10 years, $108,000. After 20 years, $277,000. After 30 years, $725,000. At 4% withdrawal, that generates $2,400 per month in retirement income. Survivable, not free. Not what the advertisements implied when they showed you the couple walking on the beach. At 18%, the number that was never printed on the HR office poster, That earner sends $1,125 per month into the account. After 10 years, $194,000. After 20 years, $507,000. After 30 years, $1,314,000. At 4% withdrawal, that is $4,380 per month in retirement income. Combined with Social Security, that is an actual retirement on an actual timeline without selling the house or hoping the body cooperates past 70. The return rate was constant across every one of those scenarios. The time frame was constant. The income was constant. The only variable was the percentage going in each month. The 30-year result moved from $187,000 to $1,314,000. Same person, same market, same decades. One number on one line of an enrollment form produced a different ending by over $1 million. Now here is where the expensive mistake usually gets made. You might be looking at 18% and immediately thinking, that is not realistic for my situation. Maybe you are at 6 or 8% right now, and the gap between where you are and 18% feels like a wall. That reaction, the instant instinct that the number is too high, is exactly the moment where people turn toward the wrong solution. Not because 18% is always achievable overnight, but because the diagnosis most people attach to that instinct is almost always wrong. You think the problem is that the percentage is too high. The actual problem is that nobody ever told you which percentage actually matters. And more critically, why the financial industry has a structural reason to point your attention somewhere else entirely. The financial media, the brokerage platforms, the fund comparison tools, the endless articles debating whether you should be in growth or value, whether to rebalance quarterly or semi-annually, whether the 9.2% fund is worth the expense ratio over the 8.8% fund. All of it trained you to treat return rate as the primary variable in your retirement equation. And Vanguard's own published research is clear. For an investor in the first 15 years of their investing life, the difference between a 7 and a 9% annual return on a modest account balance produces less additional wealth than a $200 monthly contribution increase on that exact same balance. The lever that nearly every piece of financial content points at is not the lever that actually moves the outcome at this stage. The lever that moves the outcome is the percentage. That percentage is entirely in your hands. The market does not decide your contribution rate. You do, or more accurately, an HR enrollment form decided it years ago, and most people have never gone back to update it. The Bureau of Labor Statistics found median weekly earnings for full-time workers rose more than 15% between 2019 and 2024. The average 401k contribution rate across that same period? Nearly flat. Income went up. The percentage did not follow. The lifestyle absorbed the difference without a single deliberate decision. This is why the financial services industry does not lead with the savings rate conversation. There is no product attached to increase your percentage to 18 and leave it alone. A brokerage where you set an automatic contribution and never trade generates almost nothing in advisory fees, fund management income, or trading commissions. Return rate obsession is monetizable. Savings rate discipline is not. The content that gets funded, the tools that get built, the advisors who get platform time, they are almost always selling complexity. And complexity here costs you money. Let me give this a face. Sandra. She is 51 years old, works as a project coordinator at a mid-sized logistics company in Columbus, Ohio, earns $83,000 per year, and has contributed 6% of her salary to her 401k since the company launched the plan in 2009. 15 years. Unbroken. Not one missed contribution. She did not sell during COVID. She did not switch to cash when the news cycle turned dark. Her current balance is $114,000. Last month she ran a retirement projection. The number she saw made her physically uncomfortable. At her current contribution rate, she retires at 67 with approximately $240,000. 4% of that is $9,600 per year. $800 per month. 15 years of perfect behavior produced an endpoint that requires her to keep working until the body cooperates and then live on $800 per month plus Social Security. Sandra came away from that projection convinced the problem was her fund selection. She started researching sector ETFs. She booked a call with a financial advisor, charging 1.2% of assets annually. She was about to make the most expensive decision of the next decade, and it had nothing to do with which fund she was in. We will come back to Sandra, because the actual calculation, the one she had not run yet, changes the picture entirely. But first, let me show you the fill level, the exact dollar amount where the pressure tank stops needing the pump to run constantly. Because once you see that number, Sandra's situation and yours stops looking like a performance problem and starts looking like an information problem. And information problems have dramatically cheaper solutions. The number is $193,000. That is the exact portfolio size, at a 7% annual return and an 18% savings rate on a $75,000 income, where the monthly return generated by the portfolio equals the monthly contribution going in. $193,000. That is the fill level. That is the specific point where the pressure tank stops needing the pump to run constantly. Before that number, you are doing all the work. After it, the portfolio starts carrying its own weight alongside you. Every month before you cross it, your contributions are the engine. Every month after, you and the portfolio are splitting the work. And the farther past it you go, the more the portfolio does and the less you need to. Most financial content gives you this concept in vague terms, once compounding really kicks in, without ever attaching a specific dollar figure to it. A specific number is something you can measure progress toward. A vague concept is something you can sell products against indefinitely. 193,000 is not magic. It is arithmetic, your monthly contribution divided by your monthly return rate. What changes everything is how fast you reach it. And that speed is determined by two variables working together that nobody told you to manage simultaneously, and one of them has been quietly working against you since the day you opened your account. Variable 1 is how much goes in each month. We covered that. The second variable operates silently in the background, extracting a portion of your compounding output every year you are invested, without appearing anywhere on your monthly statement in a way that actually registers. Fees. Not in the vague sense every financial article mentions and then drops, in specific, calculable, Sandra-level dollars. Here's what Sandra was about to do to herself. She was ready to sign with a financial advisor charging 1.2% of assets under management annually. Her current plan also carries fund expense ratios averaging about 0.5%. Her total annual fee drag would hit approximately 1.7%. At a gross market return of 7%, her net return after fees becomes 5.3%. And here's what that does to her specific situation over the 16 years between now and retirement. At 7% net return, with a contribution increase Sandra is capable of making, which we will get to shortly, she reaches a terminal balance of approximately $677,000 by 67. At 5.3% after the advisor and fund fees, same behavior, same timeline, same contribution level, approximately $552,000. The fee structure costs her $125,000, not paid out of pocket in a line item she can see. Lost to compounding that never happened because the fee redirected the output year after year. The second variable was extracting money from her account every year and nobody named it. Vanguard's own published research estimates the actual financial value add of a human advisor for a straightforward accumulation portfolio, the measurable return improvement from things like tax loss harvesting and rebalancing, runs between 0 and about 0.5% annually. The 1.2% fee Sandra was about to pay is 2 to 4 times the documented value delivered, on a portfolio whose primary strategy is to leave it alone. You are paying premium pricing for a service whose core advice is to not act. That transaction structure benefits one party. Now let me show you Sandra's actual numbers. Not the 240,000 her projection tool showed. That number came from a calculator that baked in a broken assumption that she would stay at 6% contributions forever and continue absorbing fee drag that compressed her real return. Here's what happens when she makes two decisions. 1. Move her fund allocation to the lowest cost index equivalent inside her existing 401k. Same employer plan, same match, no account change, just switching the fund selection, which takes about 8 minutes. This drops her effective expense ratio from roughly 0.5% to approximately 0.05%. 2. Increase her contribution from 6% to 14% of gross salary, not 18. 14. Here is what that change costs her per month. $83,000 times 14% divided by 12 is $968 per month. She was contributing $415. The increase is $553 per month. Before you log that as unachievable, here is exactly where that money already exists in Sandra's life. She received a 3.5% cost of living raise last year. That is $242 per month that never got redirected to anything deliberate. It dissolved into daily spending, slightly more comfortable choices, nothing she could name if you asked. Her car loan ends in 4 months. That payment is $280 per month. Those two events together produce $522 per month of cash that has no destination yet. She does not need to cut anything meaningful. She does not need a second job. She needs to root her raise before her lifestyle calculates that it has more budget and redirect the car payment the day the loan clears. 2 decisions executed at specific moments. Not a budget overhaul. At $968 per month, 7% net return, starting from her current $114,000 over 16 years, terminal balance approximately $677,000. At a 4% withdrawal rate, that is $27,080 per year. $2,256 per month in retirement income. From $800 a month to $2,256. Same person, same market, same 16 years. 2 decisions made before the money was even available to spend. Now here is where it gets genuinely frustrating once you see it clearly. Sandra's situation is not unusual. It is statistically normal. The Employee Benefit Research Institute's 2024 data shows the median 401k contribution rate for workers age 50 to 54 is 8.4%, not 18. 8.4. And a large share of those workers have been at or near that percentage for years, not because they cannot afford more, but because they filled out an enrollment form when they first started the job, picked a number, and the automatic deduction has run at that rate ever since. Income rose, raises arrived, the form never got updated, nobody sent a reminder. Nobody flagged that the percentage that made sense at the original salary produces a structurally different retirement outcome at a salary that is now 30 or 40% higher. The enrollment form number just kept running. This is not a discipline failure. It is a design failure in the system. Automatic contributions are genuinely good. They beat 0 every time, no argument. But the same automation that makes contributions consistent also makes contribution rates sticky. The rate you chose on a Wednesday afternoon during new employee orientation runs until you physically log in and change it. The financial services industry has no structural incentive to send you a reminder to do that. A 401k investor who increases their contribution rate into an index fund already inside their own plan generates essentially 0 additional revenue for anyone in the industry. No new account to open, no product to compare, no advisory relationship to initiate, so the reminder never comes. The number stays where you put it years ago. The salary it calculates against gets bigger. The gap between your actual retirement outcome and the one the charts implied keeps widening silently. The life event window is the single most powerful and most underused mechanism for closing this gap. Here is the structural reality of most adult financial lives in the 50s. Car loans end, student loans finish, kids stop needing financial support, mortgages get refinanced at lower rates. Every one of these moments creates a block of monthly cash flow that had a clear destination yesterday and has none today. The average American car payment in 2025 ran just over $700 per month according to Experian data. When that payment ends, $700 per month is suddenly unallocated. Within 90 days, most of that flow has been absorbed without a single deliberate spending decision being made. It expanded into existing habits, better version of something already owned, service that seemed reasonable, dinner out that became routine. Nobody decided not to invest it. The money moved before anyone thought to redirect it. The investors who actually close the contribution gap share one behavior almost universally. They make the decision about where new cash flow goes before the cash flow exists, not when it arrives. A decision made today, while the car loan is still running, with no actual freed money in hand, executes correctly when the moment comes. A decision made while holding newly available cash and standing in the middle of a life that just got a little more comfortable almost never goes to investments. Your future self holding new money without prior instructions will spend it. Your current self automating the instruction today before the money is free will invest it. The architecture of the decision matters more than the discipline of the person making it. Sandra's car loan ends in 4 months. The destination of that $280 per month is being decided right now by the absence of a decision. And right now, she is closer to a genuinely different retirement than she has been at any point in the last 15 years of perfect contribution discipline. The math has shifted in her favor. She just has not seen it from that angle yet. We will finish her story in the next section, because the resolution involves one more piece of the picture that most retirement calculators never factor in, and it changes the timeline in a way that is almost uncomfortable to look at once you have the number. Here is the piece that Sandra's projection tool never built in. The correction from $240,000 to $677,000 represents a $437,000 difference in terminal wealth. But almost none of that difference comes from decisions made over the next 16 years. Almost all of it comes from how those 16 years compound decisions made in the next 4 months. That distinction matters more than it sounds. At 7% annual return, a dollar added to Sandra's portfolio today, with 16 years of runway, becomes approximately $2.95 by retirement. A dollar added in month 180, 2 years before she stops working, becomes approximately $1.13. Her earliest remaining dollars are worth more than 2.5 times her final dollars, not because the market treats them differently, because time does. Every month Sandra delays implementing the contribution increase, she is not just losing the contribution difference, she is losing the compound return on that difference for the entire remaining period. And because she is currently below the $193,000 fill level, her balance sits at $114,000. Every additional dollar she contributes right now is doing double work, adding to the account directly and pushing the crossover point closer at the same time. The specific cost of a 12-month delay in Sandra's case, approximately $24,000 in terminal balance reduction. Not from missing contributions, from compounding that never ran on contributions that arrived late, from an administrative decision, not a financial one, not a market one, just the timing of when she updates a form. Now here is what Sandra actually did. She did not hire the financial advisor. She logged into her 401k portal the same week she ran the corrected projection. She found that her primary fund carried a 0.68% expense ratio. Inside the same plan, same employer, same 401k, no new account, an equivalent index fund existed at 0.03%. She switched the fund allocation and directed new contributions to the cheaper fund. 11 minutes. She then increased her contribution from 6% to 11% immediately, what she could absorb today without reorganizing her budget. She set a calendar reminder for the day her final car payment clears, 4 months from now. The reminder says one thing: increase 401k to 14% today. The decision is already made. The form is not updated yet, but the instruction is written before the money exists. When the cash flow frees up, she will not be making a decision. She will be executing one made while she was still making car payments. At 67, holding this structure without interruption, Sandra is looking at approximately $650,000 to $677,000. At a 4% withdrawal rate, that is $2,200 per month in retirement income before Social Security. The number her original projection showed was $800 per month. The gap between those two numbers is not a different market, not a different lifetime of discipline, not a different person. It is 2 decisions executed before the money was available to spend and 1 advisor meeting she did not take. Here are 3 specific things to do with what you learned today. Not general principles, concrete actions with exact next steps. First, log into your retirement account this week and find the expense ratio on every fund you currently hold. Not this month. This week. The Fund Detail tab, usually labeled Fund Information or Investment Options, lists it. If any fund shows an expense ratio above 0.5%, check whether a comparable index fund exists inside the same plan. In most employer-sponsored 401k plans, one does. You switch the fund allocation. No new account, no advisor, no paperwork beyond a few clicks. Fidelity's 2024 plan data analysis found that participants who had not reviewed fund selections in more than 3 years were paying an average expense ratio 0.9% higher than the cheapest equivalent option available inside their same plan. 0.9% annually on a $200,000 balance is $1,800 per year in compounding output redirected away from your account. Not a fee you see on a statement. Money your portfolio generated that went somewhere else. Fix it this week. That decision, made today, is worth more per hour spent than any side income you could take on. Second, calculate the exact percentage that gets you from your current contribution rate to 14% of gross income going into tax-advantaged accounts. Not 18 yet, 14. Write that number down. Then ask one question. What is the next predictable income event in my life? A raise that is likely, a loan that ends, a bonus that typically arrives. And what is the specific date? Write that date next to the percentage. Decide right now, before the money exists, what share of that freed cash flow goes directly into contributions. The research by Shlomo Benartzi and Richard Thaler on automatic escalation, the framework behind the Save More Tomorrow program, found that workers who committed to a future contribution increase before receiving the income implemented the increase at rates more than 3 times higher than workers who made the same intention without the pre-commitment. The decision made today, in the abstract, with no actual cash in hand, executes at a fundamentally different rate than the decision made in the moment, while holding new money and standing in the middle of a life that just got more comfortable. Make the decision now. Update the form when the trigger date arrives. Your current self making the instruction today is the one that actually runs. Your future self with freed cash flow and no prior instruction will spend it. Third, run your own fill level calculation. Take your current monthly contribution amount and divide it by 0.00583. That is your 7% annual return expressed as a monthly rate. The result is the portfolio balance at which your monthly investment return equals your monthly contribution, your personal crossover number. Write it down. Look at your current balance. Write down the gap. Then ask, at my current contribution rate, how many years until I cross that number? Then ask, at 14%, how many years earlier do I cross it? That difference in years, expressed as additional terminal balance at retirement, is larger than virtually any return rate optimization a fund comparison tool could generate. That gap is the actual problem. Not your fund selection, not your return rate, not your asset allocation. The distance between your current balance and the fill level. Everything else is noise until the tank holds enough pressure to sustain itself. Here's the thing the financial industry built its entire content ecosystem around obscuring. The investors who end up quietly, embarrassingly wealthy in their 60s almost never had a better fund. They almost never found a more sophisticated strategy. They almost never timed the market or identified the right sector at the right moment. What they had was the right percentage on a form they updated at the right moment, early enough that 15 or 20 years of compounding had time to run without interruption. The industry cannot build a product around that. A person who increases their contribution to 14% in a 0.03% expense ratio index fund and does not touch it for 2 decades generates approximately 0 in advisory fees, management revenue, or trading commissions. That investor is financially invisible to the institutions. No transaction to process. No complexity to charge for, no product to renew. So the industry points your attention toward return rates, sector comparisons, and timing decisions, all of which generate revenue, and none of which, at your current portfolio stage, move the outcome the way the number on your enrollment form moves it. If this kind of analysis is useful, real numbers, actual math, no product attached, hit subscribe. It is free. It keeps this channel running. And it is the only mechanism that gets this type of content in front of you when the next one goes up. The pump in your financial life is already running. It has been running since your first contribution cleared. The only question is, how much longer until the tank is full enough that the pressure sustains itself without you carrying all of it? That timeline is not determined by the market. It is not determined by your fund selection or your return rate or any product anyone is trying to sell you. It is determined by one number on one form. And right now, today, that number is